Around 2,800 Hezbollah militiamen were maimed and injured by exploding pages in what appeared to be a sophisticated Israeli hack attack. Footage captured on CCTV and mobile phones across Lebanon showed Hezbollah fighters suddenly collapsing in agony after blasts in their pockets. The attacks were triggered simultaneously, detonating devices in the south of the country and in Hezbollah strongholds in the south of the capital, Beirut. Lebanese health officials said later that around 200 of those hurt were in a critical condition in what appeared to be a huge blow to the terror group. Panic spread among troops near Israel's northern border, where Hezbollah have been launching daily rocket, drone and guided missile attacks since October the 7th. It remained unclear how the audacious strike was pulled off, but it was quickly being labelled the biggest security breach in Hezbollah's history. Early reports suggested hundreds of Islamist terrorists were seriously injured at the same time after a self-destruct signal was beamed to their devices at around 3:45 p.m. local time. Lebanon's health ministry immediately issued a statement urging the public to steer clear of wireless communication devices as appeals went out for blood to treat the injured. Video on social media showed one man shopping for fruit in a market when a huge explosion tore into his left leg as stunned bystanders looked on in astonishment. The detonation sparked panic and chaotic scenes in capital Beirut, with fighters and members of the public scrambling to jettison mobile devices. Other images showed car windows shattered and their interiors spattered with blood after pages appeared to have detonated inside vehicles. Israel didn't comment, but speculation was mounting that its agents infiltrated a batch of pages recently supplied to Iran-backed Hezbollah fighters. Iran's ambassador in Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, was amongst those wounded by the explosions, according to Iranian news reports. Lebanese sources later disclosed that around 2,800 people have been injured in the series of explosions. An Israeli IT expert specialising in weapons technology has told us it was possible that all of the devices were triggered to detonate at exactly the same time by the push of a single button. It would appear that software was used to overload their batteries and capacitors, causing them to explode, or Israel may have infiltrated the supply chain and rigged them with explosives. Either way, it's one of the sneakiest and most audacious attacks of its kind ever mounted, and seems to have been a major coup for Israel.
It is important to keep in mind that nearly 3 decades ago, Israel managed to assassinate the main designer of bombs for Hamas. His name was Yahya Ayyash. He was known by the moniker the engineer because of those skills. And he was killed when his cell phone exploded, apparently because a small amount of explosives had been put in the device and were detonated by a remote control from an airplane flying over Gaza, listening in to make sure it was his voice on the phone at the time that it was detonated. So, it's somewhat surprising that Hezbollah would rely on pagers, knowing that Israel has a history going back decades of being able to detonate electronic devices. Ironically, there were reports in the media not that long ago that Hezbollah essentially broadcast to the world that they were downgrading from cell phones to pagers in order to prevent Israeli intelligence from tracking people using the GPS capabilities. Why they would broadcast something like that to the world, I cannot tell you, but it would seem to be incredibly dumb. You're essentially telling the adversary and any other adversaries, of which Hezbollah has many, what type of technologies you're looking to acquire. And it does appear that the pagers that exploded were acquired relatively recently by Hezbollah, and I would not be surprised if they were tampered with prior to their having been delivered. There is lithium inside pagers, there's lithium batteries, those can be made to explode. But again, to have them all explode simultaneously or nearly simultaneously like that is going to require something more than coincidence. We know how much technology has advanced since the mid-1990s. We also know that intelligence agencies' capabilities have advanced since the mid-1990s. So this should not be surprising at any level. If this was Israel, which presumably it was, it should not be surprising that they have the capability to carry something like this out. The bigger question would be, how did they manage to booby-trap all of these pagers? But electronic devices such as cell phones and pagers are typically not manufactured in Lebanon or Syria or Iran. They're getting these products. Hezbollah is getting these products from overseas manufacturers. And it is likely that Western entities have the ability to influence the supply chain, to put it mildly. I mean, we have factories in the United States, there are factories in China. Some of these devices are made by American companies. It is possible that Western governments intentionally sabotage this particular line of pagers, as this particular, set of pagers that were being delivered to Hezbollah.
I don't have any details to provide on the reports of the pager blast. I can tell you, to my knowledge, there's no U.S. involvement in this at all. Again, it's something that we're monitoring. And in terms of potential escalation, I go back to what I said earlier in terms of a key focus for this department and the U.S. government writ large is on working with partners in the region, to include Israel, to prevent the conflict between Israel and Hamas from spiraling into a wider conflict. And that includes the tensions along the Israel-Lebanon border. And so we'll continue to strongly advocate for a ceasefire and the release of the hostages, and we'll continue to strongly advocate for a diplomatic resolution to the tensions that we're seeing along the Israel-Lebanon border.
Does DoD assess that this was an attack by Israel, and do you consider this an escalation of the tensions on the northern border?
Yeah, as far as what it is, again, I just don't have anything to provide. And as far as escalation, broadly speaking, in the Middle East, I mean, this is something that we've been paying attention to for more than almost a year now, since Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7. And so we've been very, very focused. The Secretary's been very, very focused on ensuring that the tensions in the region do not escalate into a wider regional conflict. And as I highlighted at the top, that's something that continues to stay top of mind.
If there are any viewers who are thinking that their pagers may suddenly explode, I think it's important to understand that even if you hear discussions about lithium batteries having potential problems, these aren't the kinds of things that happened coincidentally or by accident. This was a targeted attack carried out by an extremely sophisticated party or parties, likely a nation-state actor or a bunch of nation-state actors. So unless you're a terrorist or involved in some terrible activity, I think you can rest assured that your cell phone or pager, if for some reason you're using a pager, is not likely to undergo a spontaneous combustion of this nature.